Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're already recording. I'll keep admitting as we go. St. Patty's Day. Those who celebrate, enjoy. Actually go outside. Good news is baseball will be starting April 1st. Bad news is who knows who or when we can get to a game. Orioles are still deciding on who gets tickets opening day. We'll learn as we go. In terms of chapter news, we are hiring, or Bruce is, a professional company to actually create our website. So that should be up and running hopefully by the early summer. We're going all out and going to do it right from the beginning versus me.
Where's my screen?
Trying to tinker around. And obviously stay tuned for more email updates. I'm trying to line up some more speakers through May and June, in addition to doing just chapter members and SABR folks doing presentations. I'm going to try to line up somebody to speak to us from either one of the Orioles minor league affiliates and possibly one of the Orioles broadcasters. So stay tuned. And Mike, you're up in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, Northeast Pennsylvania, up just south of Stroudsburg.
Okay. Yeah, I'm from the Scranton area, if you didn't know that.
Okay.
So I'll let Mr. Gimbel take over and do his presentation. I have made him a co-host, so he should be able to share any slides. I will be here, but I will be on mute. If you guys want to—
Let me ask you
Go ahead, Mike.
Let me ask you a question. When I go to share my screen, will there also be like a little grid of your pictures, or will it just be a complete screen?
It should be a complete screen depending on your setup.
Okay. Okay. As long as you guys can hear me. See, I was thinking I would see your picture so that I knew you were still there.
We'll let you know if we're not.
Complete screen.
Check the chat every once in a while. So.
Okay, very good.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I can start. Okay. First of all, I want to thank the SABR Babe Ruth Committee for allowing me to make the presentation of the past season and the upcoming season ratings. However, before I start, I really need to let you know what the numbers mean, because it's going to be meaningless if I just throw numbers up at you. And what does it actually mean? So I have to explain, and but also say, first of all, 30 years ago, I was an advisor to Dan Duquette, and as an innovator in all this stuff. But what's passed, it's all pretty much passed me by on the field level. The stuff that's been created over those past 30 years is stuff that I could never have imagined being created. It's fantastic. Yet, I'm shocked that the overall ratings are not put together. It's all data that's scattered but not coordinated, so that it is the actual player ratings are still inferior to what I presented 30 years ago. And it's like I'm sitting here like, are they kidding me? They don't understand how to put this all together. It's obvious. So in any case, all these new creations, none of them I created, and they're fabulous. I could never have imagined them. Okay. My problem is the data is being done in a bean counting way, and bean counting is not science, and it shows in the ratings of the players how poorly it is done. It's a big advance over what it used to be. Yes, it's no longer batting average or how number of home runs and stuff like that, all of stuff which is not coordinated. Now it's much better, but it still contains faulty analysis, very faulty analysis. The main culprits are WAR and OPS. They both are a problem. But before I get into them, let me ask you guys a question. What is the most important piece of data in each game, in a game that's being played? What's the most important piece of data?
How many runs are scored?
Amen, brother.
That's the total. What's the piece of data? It's the out. There are 27 outs in the game. Each out is extremely precious. And and how you figure out the runs created is based upon how outs are handled by the team. The difference between a 300 on base percentage and a 400 on base percentage is enormous. In a full 9-inning game, that's an extra between the two for the 400 is an extra more than about a 5 1/3 at bats, which means 5 1/3 extra runners in a 9-inning game. That's enormous. But it also extends the one team essentially having an extra inning, 5 1/3 extra at bats, so that the on-base ability is the determination in many ways of how many runs are scored. 14 years ago, I gave a talk in St. Louis at the SABR and showed how on-base ability, effective on, not the original on-base ability, is determinant of how many runs a team scores. And if you, let me ask you a second question. Is on-base percentage, as you see it in the scores, when you go to baseball reference and so on, is on-base percentage figured out correctly? Is it figured out correctly? When you look at on-base percentage, is it figured out correctly? Now, I'll answer it, no, it isn't. When you hit a home run, how does it affect on-base percentage in the official?
Just like a walk or a hit.
Yes, but how many people are on base after you hit the home run? How many people who were on base are still on base after you hit the home run? Your job as a hitter is two things: to drive in the runs, that's the home run, but the other thing is to set up everybody else to score runs. And so on-base percentage actually goes the other way on a home run. Even on singles, doubles, and triples, it does too. They drive in runs as well. And on rare occasions, even a walk drives in a run with the bases loaded. You have to, in order to figure out what a real effective on base is and how it affects the rest of the scoring, you need to adjust the on base properly. And that's what I do in the RPA method. So that what you have, the mistaken OPS is the slugging is arithmetical. You just add that in. That's correct. But the on base on the other end is dynamic. It is literally if it's low, it kills the offense. If it's high, it multiplies the value of every hit of the hitters that come behind it. So it has a multiplier effect. So you're putting a additional number on one side, but the more key one, you're using an addition when it's actually a multiplier. So OPS has that problem. Although it's pretty good, you understand if you're analyzing your hitter, it is way off in many ways. And I'll show you that by one player later when I get to his. WAR, the problem with WAR is multiple. There's two problems with WAR. One, in the name itself, it tells you the problem. Wins against replacement player. You can't care about what a replacement player. You have to compare a player to the player who's the starter on the field. If in football, you're not going to compare Tom Brady to some team's replacement guy sitting on the bench as a quarterback. You compare him to another quarterback who's actually playing on the field. That's how you analyze. You cannot. So in baseball, you can only compare a shortstop to a shortstop, a catcher to a catcher, a first baseman to a first baseman. And WAR does the second problem. It places inside its formula a incorrect thing of putting positional value inside the formula. Uh, that is ridiculous. Because on defense, on defense, let me ask you a question: is a DH a better or worse defensive player than the average shortstop? Let me ask you that. Is the DH a better or worse defensive player than the average starting major league shortstop?
Probably so, but it's comparing apples and oranges, in my opinion.
No, okay. No, the DH is actually equal to the average defensive shortstop on defense. Why? Because the DH is a zero. And the average shortstop is also a zero, because you have 30 starters, 30 have, by definition, only 15 can be better than average, and the other 15 are below average. So the median, the average shortstop, is a zero as well. So on defense, a DH and a shortstop are equivalent on average. That's why you cannot compare positions that are separate. A DH can only be compared to a DH, a shortstop can only be compared to a shortstop. And to put in an extra value to the shortstop is ridiculous. So watching Nelson Cruz or David Ortiz getting their value brought down versus the shortstop is ridiculous. Anybody who's watched David Ortiz knows that that's ridiculous. The fact is that you compare, just like you could in football compare a nose tackle to a nose tackle, you compare a quarterback to a quarterback. That's the same thing in baseball. Shortstop to a shortstop, third baseman to a third baseman. Okay. Now, there's another question. The New York Mets have a player that is, in my ratings, one of the top 10, if not top 5 players, offensive players in the game today. Can you name him? The New York Mets have one of the top 10, if not top 5 offensive players in the game today. Can you name him?
Alonso.
No, he's a very good player, very good hitter. No.
Lindor?
He's a very good player, but absolutely not.
Yeah.
DeGrom.
No, hitter, offensive player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, DeGrom is the best pitcher, starting pitcher in baseball. Yes, we'll end with that on that. I'm talking about the offensive player.
I can't even think of the roster.
Well, in the game today, it may possibly even the top 5.
Conforto?
Yes, he's tremendous, but no, he's a fantastic hitter. Let me just say it, Brandon Nimmo, and you can say, what, Brandon Nimmo? He's the prime example of the misunderstanding of how to analyze player abilities. He is on-base machine who is, and when they analyze his whole offense, he's an incredible offensive player. And when I get to the position by position ratings, you'll see how high. And the Mets themselves, they don't know what they have. 2 years ago, there was talk of trading him for Starling Marte, and I was tearing my hair out and trying to contact the Mets and say, no, you don't understand what you have. I mean, you don't understand what you got there. Besides which, the illusion is also created because Citi Field is a pitcher's ballpark, so it lowers the offensive players' numbers somewhat, so that you don't really see, even on the basic way, what a player is doing. In any case, so this is so let me get down to where I need to get to. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to start to get to the two screens I'm going to be going to momentarily. One screen is the team showing you what the teams did, each team did last year. So you can see the players, the pitchers, and the total production that they did for each team. So you can understand how the team run production and ended up with the win-loss record that they did have. And then the other screen is of the player ratings. They're two different things. So a player on the team screen could be a negative and be a positive on the other screen, because the teams, it's just total run scoring. So a catcher could be a very big negative, but all catchers, most catchers are negatives. So when I compare the catchers to catchers, that catcher who's a negative could be a positive on my screen when I compare them to the other starters. Likewise, a first baseman might be plus on the team screen because he's at a power position producing runs. But when it comes to comparing him to other first basemen on the individual position rating, he might be a negative. So just understand that. So the team ratings are by quantity of run production. The individual player ratings are by quality of run production. So you just understand that. So I will now go to hopefully, tell me if you can't see it. I'm going to go to my screens now to share the screen. Tell me if it's being shared. Can you see the screen? Hello? Can you see the screen?
No, no,
Not yet, Mike.
no.
Okay. How do we share this screen? How do we share the screen?
Right now,
How do we share?
chat.
I don't know much about it, but I think there's a green thing at the bottom that says share screen.
Oh, yes, I got it. I just hit share screen. I hit share screen. Okay, this is it. Okay, share. Okay, can you see it now?
It's coming up.
Yeah,
There
we
you go.
Yep, it's there.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Let me show you what's on the screen first, because it goes from left to right. The left side is your offensive players. Your right side is your pitchers. And so I need to diminuize this so you can see. Everything. I got to take this over. Okay. So what we have here is Arizona from last year. And what you have is, if you're familiar with Baseball Reference, these are taken directly the data on the left side from Baseball Reference. And this section here from the hitting over the run value is my what I produced. This column hitting is the amount of runs produced by the player from the offense. This is the defensive runs, and this is the total runs over here produced. If you could see on the bottom here, total of this, Arizona's offense between hitting and off is a minus 15 2/3 runs on offense. I have it colored because everything from orange or light green or dark green up here will be the runs produced on a positive. These are runs negative. And if you're really bad, you're down here with color in terms of runs. So you see Arizona on offense is minus 15.69 runs, and on pitching is minus 24 runs. So overall, almost 40 runs down. 5 runs is a win. So this is a team really should be a 22-win team. They overproduced at 25 wins. So just to give you so you understand what you're looking at here. You see Zach Gallen with very good production, and you see that Robbie Ray actually assassinated the team down here, minus 11 runs. So And same thing. So you look at Atlanta. They had the three guys up at the top who were just assassinated the league offensively: Freddie Freeman, Marcell Ozuna, and Acuna, and these other producers. And they had the three guys who did not do well at the bottom. But their offense was phenomenal. 50 runs, over 50 runs to the positive. But their pitching was minus 15 runs. Even though they had Max Fried having a great year, and a lot of guys having, but the bad were bad. And so they were plus 35 runs. So they should have had about 37 wins. They had 35 wins. They could have had 2 more wins, but it's so you see where their strength was. All offense. Their pitching was short. The Cubs were almost plus 14 runs, mainly all on pretty much on the basis of Jason Hayward, to some extent by Ian Happ. But Jason Hayward alone brought them over the top, 13.9 runs. And you look at the pitching, 13.8 runs. So their pitching, they're very balanced, but nothing outstanding. So there's about 27 runs. So they should have won about 35, 36 games at 34 that they won. Okay, Cincinnati, remember they had 2 playoff games and even 17 innings or something in one of the games, and they scored no runs in the entire playoff. Look at their offense. Minus 40 and a half. This is a regular season. Minus 40 and a half. Probably the worst offense in the major leagues, with only 3 players in the positive. You can see why they flopped so badly in the playoffs, because they depended totally on the pitching, which was a fabulous, almost 59 runs plus with Trevor Bauer and Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray at the top. It is, but they're a total unbalanced team. They're plus 18 runs, so that they should have had maybe 33, 34 wins. They had 31, but obviously they underperformed because they couldn't score a run. The team had no offense. Now, is everybody hearing all this? Hello?
We're all
Everybody's
Yes, we're
hearing
good.
this, right? Yes, and if you have a question, ask a question. Okay. Now we come to Colorado, which always has an illusion of how hitting, but they are an awful hitting team, almost 29 runs down, with the one terrific player in Trevor Story at the top. And you have the pitching 21 runs down. This is a team almost 50 runs down. They should have been about a 20 win team. They did way overproduced with 26 wins. This team was absolutely horrendous and deserved their losses. The Dodgers, now plus 35 runs on offense, tremendous, led by Mookie Betts, of course, Corey Seager, so on. Plus 35 is terrific, but plus 46 and a half runs on pitchers. Phenomenal pitching, tremendous hitting. They had almost none of their pitchers were in the negative. This is with 81 runs. This is a team that should have won around 46 games. That's how powerful this team was. It's just totally balanced with what you want, and tremendous offense and even better pitching. Miami, plus 3 runs on offense, led by Rojas and Anderson, but minus 30 on pitching. They were very fortunate to make the playoffs. Very fortunate. They should have won about 25 games. They won 31. It is they should be happy that they did that. They've improved their team this year to some extent, but be happy that they made the playoffs. They were surprised. They were surprised because they shouldn't have made it. The Brewers offense, horrendous, down 36 runs. You can see who was strong, almost nobody. just a few runs above, and a whole set of people were negative, and and the pitching was very strong, plus 31 runs. This is it should be a 29 win team, is what it won. They won 29 games. They were exactly on their on the run scoring. The Mets almost average offense, 1 run above, led by Brandon Nimmo, McNeil, and Conforto, and the pitching minus 24 runs. This is where they lost it with their pitching staff. That's why the addition of Carlos Carrasco, not Francisco Lindor, was so important in that trade. They needed the pitching. That was the biggest thing in that trade. Now, so they were down they should have been down around 25 wins. They had 26 wins. This is the Philadelphia Phillies were almost like the Mets, almost average in terms of the offensive players, down a single run, led by Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins. And their pitching also was almost exactly average, just a little below. So they should have been a 30 or 29 win team. They won 28. Pittsburgh Pirates, the horrendous Pittsburgh Pirates, they were over 36 runs down on offense. They had one great young hitter, Brian Hayes, in his short term, just annihilated everybody. It was phenomenal. And their pitching down was not terrible. It was down 7 runs. So overall, they should have won 21, 22 games. They little underperformed at 19, but they were terrible. But their pitching at least kept them in to some extent. Their offense was ridiculously bad. St. Louis Cardinals, over 9 runs down on offense. Without Paul Goldschmidt, they've really been bad. Their pitching just above 7.5 runs. So it's almost, this is a 50-50 team, maybe a 29 win team. They won 30. San Diego, a very strong offense, 30.5 runs, led by Trent Grisham, Will Myers, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis. 30 runs plus, and 26, and only 27 runs on the pitching side. Very well balanced, like the Dodgers, tremendous, but short of the Dodgers on both ends. 57, they should have won close to 40, 41 games. This is a very powerful team, unfortunately, in the same division with the Dodgers, which were just one of the most powerful teams you'll ever see. The Giants on offense, almost 15 runs to the positive, led by Mike Yastrzemski and Brandon Belt. And on the pitching side, almost dead average, 0-18. So this is a team that should have won around 33 games. They well underperformed, and it's obvious. Well, their starting rotation wasn't very strong, but other than that, they should have had a better record, a little bit better record than they did. And the Nationals, plus 20, almost 21 runs, led by the best hitter in the major leagues last year, Juan Soto, the real MVP last year, and Trey Turner, phenomenal at shortstop. Those two are phenomenal. 20 runs to the plus. What pitching? Why the absolute worst pitching in baseball? 63 runs down. There's no way with that you can imagine getting to the playoffs. Just a simply awful team to win about maybe 22 games, let alone what they got. So let me go down to the American League, starting with Baltimore, what you're interested in. Okay, let's go down. Okay, Baltimore. By the way, this way I have it here, I have every team and every player like this, all going back to 1900. So if you wanted me to pull up the 1927 Yankees and see what every pitcher and player did on that, I could do that. Same with Baltimore. If you want the 1969 Baltimore Orioles up there, one of the most powerful teams. Every team, every powerful team except one that I rated won the World Series. Every single except one, and that was the 69 Orioles. They were the only one of the top 14 teams in the history of the game that did not win the World Series. Okay, the 2020 Baltimore Orioles, the offense was a plus, led by Anthony Santander. Jose Iglesias, who used to be no hitter, he did terrific. He was a terrific hitter. The pitching, however, let me move this back away. Let's see, okay. I can't get this totally out of the way. Okay, down 21 runs on. So this is a team that should have won close to 28 games. So they underperformed a little bit because their offense and pitching wasn't as bad as it could have been. Yeah, they're actually plus on the offensive side, which surprised me coming into the season. I thought you're going to be terrible. Yes, it would still be a losing team at 28, but it was actually a surprisingly good season. Boston Red Sox minus almost 7 runs on offense and minus almost 45.5 runs on pitching. Pitching was a disaster. 62 runs down. So this team was 52 runs. Should have been like a 20-win team. They managed to overperform at 24. It was really horrible pitching staff there. The White Sox, you have over 16 runs, almost 17 runs on offense, led by Jose Abreu and Tim Anderson and Eloy Jimenez. And on pitching, also 16 and almost 17 runs on offense. So very well balanced, but nothing in comparison to what you saw on Dodgers and San Diego. Very good balance, but only 17 runs on each one. This is a 36-37 win team. They won 35. Okay. The Cleveland Indians, poor offensive team, which will drop down their win total. They have one great hitter, Jose Ramirez, and the rest is nothing. 12-51 down, whereas the pitching, best in baseball, 62 runs, led by Shane Bieber's, Zach Plesac, Carlos Carrasco. This is about 50 runs to the good. This team, if they had a decent offense, should have won 40 games, but they couldn't score runs.
The Indians had the worst outfield offensively in the history of baseball.
The offense overall, however, saved by one infielder. If you take the infielder out, yes, it's a terrible, terrible team on offense. One guy carrying the entire load. Detroit Tigers on offense, minus 13.5 runs. Candelario having a very good year. Pitching simply putrid, almost 51 runs down. You're talking about a team that could have been as bad as 17 wins. This is a 17, 18 win team. When you're that bad, you're gonna luck into a few wins. They're atrocious, Detroit. Houston, 13.5 runs on the plus side on offense with 3 strong: Kyle Tucker, George Springer, Michael Brantley. And you have the pitching just below average at almost 6 runs down. This is a team should have won 31, 32 games and won 29. And as you know, was dangerous in the playoffs. It should have had a slightly better record, 31, 32 wins. Kansas City, other than Sal Perez and maybe Whit Merrifield, The offense is down, was down 16 in the third runs, and their pitching was actually good, slightly above average, led by Brad Keller and Brady Singer. This, and even you could call Kyle Zimmer in there as well. So that this is a team about a 27, 28 win team. They won 26. The Angels offense, despite the production of Mike Trout and to some extent Jared Walsh, was still, because they surround Trout with garbage, their offense well down, almost 17 runs. The pitching was very good. Not great, but very, very good, led by Dylan Bundy, as well as Mike Mayers, Andrew Haney, and a solid group, Griffin Canning and so on. So this is a team that should have won 31, maybe 32. They way underperformed at 26 wins, primarily probably because, same with the others, their offense outside of Mike Trout, you got to score runs to win a game. As Cincinnati showed you in the playoffs, you got to win. Without runs, you don't win. Minnesota Twins slightly above average on offense, despite you have the Nelson Cruz, Max Kepler, and so on, Byron Buxton. Now the pitching was fabulous, over 25 runs to plus, led by Kenta Maeda, with Dobnak and Duffy and Rich Hill doing so well. So this is a 35-36 win team. They won 36. Now the Yankees, just slightly above average on offense, despite all that great hitting. LeMahieu on top, with Frazier having a breakout year and Luke Voigt, but only 3.25 runs above on offense. Pitching is what carried them with 30 runs above, led by Jay Happ and Garrett Cole, and the long gone now Tanaka. So this is a team that should have been a 36-37 win team, won only 33. Yes, a little bit short on the offense. Oakland, very strong offensive team, led by Mark Hanna, who, like Brandon Nimmo, way underrated. People do not realize just how strong his production is, because he's on base. He's an on-base machine. And so they're moving him to the leadoff position, I hear, this year. That makes total sense, as an on-base machine. And their offense, very strong, 2280. The pitching good, nothing great, almost 5 runs. So this team should have won about 35, maybe 36 games, and I split they won 36 games. Seattle, poor offense, almost 20 runs down, led on offense by Kyle Lewis and Austin Nola. And you see on pitching, also very, very balanced in the negative direction. Minus 20 here, minus 21 there. This is a 22 win team, which overproduced at 27 wins. Tampa Bay. This is a team with very strong offense, 25, almost 26 run offense, plus, and we're led by Brandon Lowe. And the pitching, almost 10 and a half runs on our pitching, not as strong as the hitting. So that's a 37-38 win team that won 40. So it's not very far off from where they should have been. They would still been first place with 37-38 wins. Okay. The Texas Rangers, the awful ones, 31 runs down on offense, very little offense other than Joey Gallo, and that's not that great, 5 runs there. And on pitching, not as bad, but still down 7 runs. This is a 22-23 win team, which is exactly what they had, 22 wins. Toronto Blue Jays, very strong offense, 20 and a half runs on offense, led by Kevin Biggio and Lourdes Gurriel and Rowdy Tellez. And so, and they're pitching, bad pitching, led by Ryu and Anthony Bass, very good. But Tanner Roark really crushed them. It was awful. And so this is a team should have been won about 29 games. They overproduced at 32. And so those are the team ratings. Now it's going to be different because it's position by position. And you may be a plus up here, but it'll be a minus, or you might be a minus here and be a plus on the positional rating. So we'll go to
Mike,
Go ahead.
did the Indians overperform or underperform?
They underperformed slightly, but because of that, they couldn't score runs. They had fabulous pitching that with any kind of offense should have been the top team in the American League if they had any kind of offense. But they had one player, and hard to win with one.
Lindor had his worst year because he admitted he didn't prepare in the off season before last year.
Yeah, well, I do 3-year averaging, and that was only a 60-game season, so it will bring him down a little bit. It won't be because most of his production, when you do 3-year average, it's going to be in the previous 2 seasons. Okay, so here's let me show you first base so you understand it first before you, what does this screen show? What is this screen showing? Let's see. Okay, this is in 3 colors for each position. You only have 30 players for each position as starters. So only 15 can be premier, the best. The other 15, they are qualified to start in the major leagues, but they're losing runs for your team. And they're the ones in yellow. So the premier guys are in the green. The guys who are qualified to be starters into major leagues are in yellow. And the bencher guys like Eric Hosmer, I can never understand why he ever got that huge contract for San Diego. I've usually had him in the yellow, but now after all this, he's now down in the blue bench area. Shouldn't even be a starter. It is incredible that teams spend millions and tens of millions of dollars on players, and they don't know what they're actually purchasing because they don't have an overall view of what the player produces. Now, there's 3 parts to this screen: a left, a center, and a right. The left is for players who are fully regulars that have produced at least 400 outs, have hit into 400 outs, or pitched 400 outs over the 3 years. And I listed them out because the more the outs, the better the rating is. Of course, you talk about if you're only 400 or 300 outs, it's not, your confidence level is lower. So this is the high confidence column. This is 200 outs over the 3 years, and in both cases you had to have a minimum of 30 outs in the last year, from last year to even be on here. So it's 200 outs versus 400 plus outs here, 200 plus, and 30 outs in last year. These are just interesting players who doesn't even make it to 200 outs, but were so good in those that I put them approximately where they figured in their rating here, just to give you an idea that, there's a guy out here that's looks like somebody who should be paid attention to. It's not, it doesn't even get managed. His rating doesn't even make it to lower confidence, but what he's done is significant and notable. Okay, so what we have here, say Freddie Freeman, batting left, his age, the team, the number of outs over the 3 years, over 1,000, his actual offensive rating, right? His runs produced per out given up, his defense, which is -4, so he's below average on defense, an age adjustment rating for that age of 1 point. So you add it up, 268 -4 is 264 plus 1. So his overall rating is 0.265, making him the #1 first baseman in the major leagues, Freddie Freeman. So you see who's here. Now, Luke Voigt's interesting. He would be much higher, except for he's the worst defensive first baseman in the major leagues. So he would be above Alonso, but he's, he didn't bring a glove with him to the major leagues. The best defensive first baseman is down here. Ulieski Gurriel at +7. Matt Olson at +6. You have various people at +5s, as Matt Muncy, CJ Crone, Danny Santana, so on. -8s, like Hunter Dozier down here, so on. So you give you an idea what all these columns mean and the total. Okay, and you see the guys out here that are interesting, but haven't been able to make it up there. So this is the blue area where they have yet to legitimize a call for being even as a starter. And you see Albert Pujols and Chris Davis down right at the bottom of the two worst in the major leagues over the last 3 years, clearly. Now it comes to second base. We see essentially now we have some of the players who are 200 to 400, but didn't make the confidence level to be over here, but who have tremendous numbers that they've shown thus far. I don't understand why John Berti doesn't play more. He is a terrific player. And the same way the Arias, yes, both of them are not exactly the greatest on defense, but they more than make up for it on offense. You have Jake Cronenworth, who didn't make it into here because not enough outs, but he's noteworthy. And you see the poorest defensive is Brandon Lau, but he makes it up with his bat. He's -11. The best defensive second baseman is Colton Wong, tremendous every year, terrific. Chad Pinder, but that's a lower number of outs, so maybe it might adjust as he gets it. And right behind that, DJ LeMahieu and his sub Tyler Wade. Those guys top on defense, and you see who the negatives are. Okay, and the negatives down here. Your Philadelphia people can't be happy with Scott Kingery. Shed Long has not shown any ability to bring a glove with him to the major leagues. So we now go to third base. You have Alex Bregman and Jose Ramirez, Anthony Rendon, and Justin Turner, Chris Bryant all at the top. The top defensive player appears to be, other than Tommy Edman over here, well, that might be adjusted as he gets more time with more data. But those are the high confidence level. Chris Bryant, #1. At 9, you have Nolan Arenado and Matt Chapman at +8. Travis Shaw at 8. At the minus level, JD Davis is -10. Those are guys, give you a little idea of, he'd be much higher because he can hit, and he's qualified to start in the major league, but he's giving you up runs because he's not in the premier. That's the group you want. You don't want players on your team that are giving away runs, even if they're qualified to start in the major leagues. Okay, Baltimore just signed Michael Franco, who is barely above Rio Ruiz in his abilities over the last 3 years. Okay, you have now shortstop. Mets are about to give zillions of dollars to Francisco Lindor as if he's the greatest shortstop in the game. No, he's not even close to Fernando Tatis. He's #7 in the major leagues, and the top two guys are also not that great defensively, but their bat overcomes everything because they're so strong offensively. Their best defensive players are Corey Seager and Carlos Correa, +11s on defense, and you're actually about to, and you have J.P. Crawford at 8, Fletcher at 7, but your top two guys, Tatis and Bogarts, they bring their bats to the ballpark. And nobody should say otherwise, because they're regardless of their defense, they're the best shortstops in the major leagues, period. And Lindor is down at number 7. He asking for money, Fernando Tatis, we know it's clearly not the case. Yes, he's a premier shortstop, but if that's nowhere near a 253, that's a 52-point difference. That's enormous. It's an enormous difference between the two. Okay, you go to left field. You have on very interesting players on the outside without enough. Randy Arozarena should not have been a surprise to anybody in the playoffs. His numbers in the regular season in both 19 and 20 were off the charts. His numbers in the minors were off the charts. What you saw in the playoffs was Randy Arozarena, was real. He is what you saw. And they shouldn't, he tore up the major leagues before, and what you saw is what you got in the playoffs. This guy is a freak, as they say, offensively. Okay, you have Yelich, Soto, McNeil, Meadows, all at the top up here, and you have the younger guys without the not quite 400 outs, so it's not as clear the rating because it's a lesser amount of data. But and you have Baltimore has Ryan Mountcastle, who has tremendous numbers, and he's slotted in with these guys. His production was up there with these guys, but it's very short amount of data, so it's hard to say. Okay, so that's as far as defense goes, the big defensive players are in left field. You had Corey Dickerson at plus 14. In shorter data, Mike Troutman at 14. You have Robbie Grossman at plus 10. Minus guys are Jock Peterson at minus 15. Dom Smith at minus 13. Eddie Rosario minus 11. And and McNeil minus 7. Yelich minus 6. Juan Soto's a plus 6. So he's not only can hit, he can field as well. Michael Brantley a plus 8. And Adam Duvall plus 9 here. If you want to go really into this, to the benchers, Nick Solak and Josh Naylor both forgot to bring the glove to the major leagues. Okay, in center field, get a little who's number 1 and what the number is, 360. No players even close to that. No players even close to 360. That's a ridiculous number. But look at Brandon Nimmo, number 2, 288. Phenomenal numbers. And let me just qualify this. In center field, he is a little bit below average in center field. But my numbers for every player, I total his production on defense at all positions he's played. And Brandon Nimmo plays left, center, and right over the 3 years. Every year he plays all 3 positions, and he's very good in left and right. So the overall, he's plus 2. So just to understand what you're looking at. I mean, if a player is moving on different positions in the infield, the out, or if somebody plays infield and outfield, it's all put together as one defensive rating. The number 1 defensive center fielder, George Springer, the Mets should have signed him, moved Brandon Nimmo to left, leave Conforto right. They would have had the best outfield in the major leagues by far. So he's plus 17. Trent Grisham, the young player for San Diego, plus 14 there. Kyle Lewis is up here because of his offense, not his defense. Ronald Acuna is up there with a plus 9. You have your minus 15 with Jake Cave, minus 10 with Ryan Goodman. Manny Margot, you see why he played for Tampa Bay, plus 11 on defense. He's out there for his defense. Dexter Fowler is not out there for his defense. Brett Phillips is also a tremendous defensive player. Kevin Kiermaier, plus 12, tremendous defensive player every year. So you see what all the numbers If you have questions, let me know. And down here in the bench players, Roman Quinn for Philadelphia forgot to bring his glove also. Nick Senzel forgot to bring his glove. Delano Shields can't hit at all. Otherwise, why would he be a +10 and still be down here? Okay. And in right field, Mookie Betts, the second best player after Mike Trout, 332 overall, a +22 on defense. He's still great on the offensive but when you add it all together, absolutely phenomenal. The only other player who comes close, but it's on a smaller number of chances, Anthony Santander, +20 on defense. You have Jason Hayward at +14 and Max Kepler +13. Aaron Judge at 11, Michael Strumfield +10. At the minus levels, you have Charlie Blackmon, who's still premier because of his hitting, but a -13 on defense. Clint Frazier, you saw this great offense, but he was better. This is a 3-year average, so he was better this past year. So that will probably improve as he gets more time in the outfield. And DJ Stewart forgot to bring his glove. And let's see. The only reason that this is not Tyler Naquin's not in the blue area is because he did bring his glove. His offense is nowhere, but his defense got him up into that section. Others, Brian Vaughn +8, Cole Calhoun +7. DHs, you'll notice you have defensive numbers for DHs here because they play the field to some extent, and I include that because that is what they produced. You want to know what value they do produce. If you see this whole group from the yellow through the blue, not one of them is out of the negative. They are true DHs. All these down here are true DHs. They're all negatives on defense. But those here, the top ones, actually, to some extent, are pluses. Ozuna and Canha are actually been pluses on offense. But anything on the yellow and blue down, you can see every single one of them are negatives. When they do get on the field, they can't, they all forget to bring their gloves. Okay, so catcher. Okay, now there's going to be a greater variation of catcher. I don't rate pitch calling and everything. I rate the ability of the catcher to hold the running game as well as wild pitches and pass balls and everything. So it's all of that is combined. So as the rating. So number one catchers, Real Muto, a +32 on defense. He really controls the running game, doesn't have the the wild pitches and pass balls and everything like that up here. The number two catcher, but based on his offense primarily because he's -7 on defense thus far. But he's young; he'll improve hopefully. You have Milwaukee has a contrast. They have shares two catchers, one in offensive, one in defensive. The defensive catcher Manny Pino +30. The offensive catcher Omar Narvaez -18, and they pretty much are identical overall in their production. Manny Pino, because of defense, very slightly better, but it's an interesting platoon there. You have Mitch Garver, who's in there only for his bat because he can't. You have Wilson Contreras, who can both hit and great defense. James McCann with the Mets sign, a good defensive catcher. Jacob Stallings from Pittsburgh, outstanding defensive catcher. On only 276 outs, so you'll have to see. Alex Avila, another tremendous catcher. Wieters, another defensive catcher. Casali, not a defensive catcher. Roberto Perez for Cleveland, a tremendous defensive catcher, not a hitter at all. He's not balanced in any way. So you can see who's good, who's not. The worst of all, Kurt Suzuki, a -33. You can just run on him all day, and slow first baseman maybe can steal on him.
Roberto
Anyway,
Perez,
so-
excuse me, Roberto Perez has not had a pass ball in over 2 years.
He's a tremendous catcher, tremendous defensive catcher.
Yeah, can't hit.
He is. Yes, he can hit. Yes. You take those 26 away, it'll be 132 and he'd be down here. Okay, down at this level. Okay, but you have to take defense into account, and he's not even that far away from getting into the premier catcher position despite his offensive woes. So Gary Sanchez here, his offense is great, but he's minus 11 on defense. So hopefully he can improve on defense, improve on out, and get back to hitting and move himself back up. You have Sal Perez here with a plus 22 on defense, and so you see the whole player there. You have players who are just Tyler Flowers was in the game for his offense, not his defense. If you add that 139 and goes to 169, that would move him all the way up here into the premier. As far as he's a hitting catcher, he's not a defensive catcher. Now for the starting pitchers, and I've broken the premier group into groupings. Number 1 starter, that's SP1. Number 2 starter, number 3 starter, number 4 starter, so on. So you can see that. So the number 1 starters are all up here. You see the young pitchers who all would fit into that if they had enough, but they didn't have enough time, enough outs to even make it into this group. But they're interesting in what they've done. But what do you want to see? Take a look at the Dodgers. Tony Gonsolin, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Urias, Dustin May. They have 5 number 1 starters in the top half of the number 1 starters, not just in there. That's before they signed Trevor Bauer. To give you an idea of their pitching, that is freaking unbelievable. They're set, with that kind of pitching staff, and they're hitting. That is just a remarkable team. And so, as you said, DeGrom, the best pitcher in baseball. Ryu, who forced the Dodgers let go because they had all these other pitchers, and he's the number 3 pitcher in all of baseball. Now Garrett Cole after that. Hopefully Soroka will come back from his injury. Looks like he should be, and be back where he was. And Philadelphia, Aaron Nola right there, and Clayton Kershaw. Okay, so you have that's the number 2 starters. Number 3 is split up into the premier group because that's the top half of the starters. And now these group, they're qualified to start yellow, but they are giving away runs for your team. This is and take a look at, since it's 3-year averaging, he had an awful year 3 years ago, and so I use 3-year averaging. So. And it's the most accurate. So we'll have to see if he can repeat last year. But he's right at the cusp of the premier grouping. But it's 3-year averaging, and I stick very close to that because it works out, generally speaking. Of course, there's going to be many people who don't stick to that. Will have a career year or career bad year. Okay, so this is the starting pitchers who qualified to start this group. And then you have your guys who are starters but shouldn't be. They're bench pitchers. Okay, relief pitchers. There's something I want to show you that's very interesting. But before we get there, here's a whole group of young pitchers who last year were flat out phenomenal. They're up here, especially, and because their 3-year total is not enough to get them in here, but they need to watch them, especially the 2 Dodger pitchers, Bruce Dockeredo and Victor Gonzalez, because their current closer is on his way out. He has not had pitched well for the last couple of years, and these are the guys going to be in the position to replace him. Britton won't be back until mid-season. So these are the 2 that people don't realize how good they have been. Of those with enough data, Josh Hader and Liam Hendricks, number 1 and number 2. And here's the thing I want to show you. Take a look at the ages. Almost every pitcher on this side and almost every pitcher on this side are 30 years and above. Almost all 30 years above, some of them very much above. And it looks like it's a position that you grow into with knowledge and the pitchers who, like Oliver Perez, who is terrible pitcher, a starting pitcher, and terrible for his first initial years, for the last few years has been outstanding. There's a position where you learn to pitch. Looks like that's my take from it, from seeing all the when I do all the top, they all end up all these pitchers who are 30 and above as the top pitchers, really pitchers in the game. And so that's very interesting. And this is your the group. They're qualified to be in your bullpen, but they lose you runs because they're in the non-premier group. They're in the group that, and then your bench warmers, the guys who actually are like Kenley Jansen, who I just mentioned. His run production per out has been phenomenally bad over the 3 years. Unless he can turn it around, which I don't see. This is a 3-year average. You know, I mean, that's real. That's real. 3-year average, 522 outs recorded while he's pitching. It really, really, really says I got to be replaced. And since the Dodgers have 2 of the best young relievers in the game, it looks like it's well set for that replacement to take place. Okay. Are there any questions on either one of these before I go any further?
Yeah, Tom Steezer question. These are 3-year averages of every player, right?
Every single player.
Have you done the study that says of the 3 years, if a player has a good year at his last year or his second last year and third year, he's trending up and it's probably going to be better?
No, I've tried that. I've tried to do that 2 out of 3 years, or just last year, or this way or that. Every which way I did it. If I just took the last year, some are indicative. Some are indicative, but it's so hit or miss that on average, the 3-year averaging is better. It's simply better. Yeah, I've had in the instance a good. I would say, like, if it's 45, 55, 45% of the time, it's real. But 55% of the time, it's not. So I have to go with, with what is indicated. The safest, if you're making a team hire, you have to do, you don't bet the long shot, you bet the sure shot. You bet the guy who's most likely to produce according to what you've seen in the 3-year averaging is the best way to go. So that's the best I can say. However, 45% of the time, that last year is real, and but you can't make a decision just on that unless you know something about the player that really indicates that it's absolutely for real and it's not a 1-year blip. Okay. Also, I should tell you, in my age adjustments, one thing that I found is the players, the hitter side, before they're 24 years old, they're flat. If they come up at 19, 20, 21, 22, you're not going to see improvement until they hit the year 24. And that's where the jump starts, after the year 24. That's when they start to trend upwards in their production. So there's a plateau, and the opposite is true for pitchers. They have the big jumps at before 24, and then smaller jumps as you get up to about 31, 32, and then it goes away after the mid 30s. So they almost mirror each other. The pitchers have their biggest jumps before 24, the hitters from 24 onwards. So, any other questions?
When do the hitters start declining and the pitchers start declining?
Generally, outside of injuries and everything, both of them, they hit the zero adjustment in the mid-30s. And then after the mid-30s, they start to pick up speed going down, okay, as with each year. But at the mid-30s, usually about 35, 36-year-old, there's no adjustment, there's a zero adjustment. They plateau there, and then they start to move down each year a little bit faster. So from there, that's how it goes on both of them. What happens is hitters, you don't see it as much because older players and older pitchers don't pitch as many innings because of the history of injuries and so on, but they have more knowledge. So as a hitter, they're more professional at the plate. So their per plate appearance, their performance overall is better, but they don't get to the plate quite as often because as they're an older player. But I rate them on the quality of production. And so I don't want a player on the field that's losing me runs. I want my bench even to be getting me runs. So when I was advising Montreal, I almost was saying, I don't mind an injury to my starting player because I put guys on our bench who I think could be even better than the starter. So because they've killed the career of Mike Trout. That's a team that should have been in the playoffs every year with a player that phenomenal. But they've surrounded him each year with such garbage that his value that he's producing is being subtracted at every position practically around him. And it's just a shame to see that. Because when you're building a team, you have to build the whole team. If you had a team of 25, all zero players, you should be a 500 team. That is, if you just got the league average player at every position and you had Mike Trout out there, you should make the playoffs just with that. But they've surrounded them mostly with players who actually lose their runs. So that, and it should not be that hard to get players or league average players of starting players around you. So how you mold a team is incredibly important. If you bring on players who are going, maybe this guy is going to have a great year. I know he had a terrible year last year. Let's bring him on the hope. And he does what he did the previous year. He kills your entire team by subtracting the value of your top players. Any other questions before I go on to any other subject?
I don't mean to monopolize the questions, but
No, please do. Please do. I enjoy the questions.
yeah, I missed the first 10 minutes because I couldn't find the link to get this on. So these stats that you've created, are they your stats or can anybody?
Yes, this is the same stuff that I put on Dan Duquette's computer when I was advising him way back when. It's updated somewhat. Obviously, I've adjusted it slightly over the decades, but overall, the fundamental formula, the fundamental ideas were the same way back then. That's why I could not understand why, with all the wonderful advances that I didn't create, that have come on that I could never have imagined, that have taken place in the game, could not understand why they haven't been able to put that all together. So you have all this one thing, the speed off the bat, the spin rate, all this other stuff that is just so fabulous for the field person to, and even in-game maneuvers, batter versus pitcher and everything like that. All that stuff is beyond what I did. And yet they're unable to put all that data together to evaluate a player on his whole production. I'm just like, because they have two mistakes. They have WAR WAR is wrong, as I demonstrated. It is wrong in two different ways. And it's a mistaken formula in all its variations. And OPS, while better than lots what you had before, is also has a problem in that it has the number, the slugging, which is correct. It's a simple addition, but the on base portion of it is geometric. It is the lower on base destroys the ability of the other hitters to bring in runs because you're never on base, versus the high on base percentage improves the value of every other hitter's ability to produce. It's a multiplication factor. It's not a simple addition factor. So both are a problem, and they both lead to misunderstanding. That's why I brought in the brand Nimmo. His own team doesn't understand. His own front office doesn't understand what he's bringing to that team. So it is what's available. I can give you the ratings. I can send you. I did that previously with the Philadelphia chapter. I emailed the spreadsheet on those ratings going into the season, so you can see what the ratings are. And if you give me your emails, I'll email you that position by position rating screen that you see right here. I'll do, that I will email you this to you. So if you send me the email, okay. Any other questions?
Mike, I thought I'd just ask, with the situation with Mike Trout, is there another ball player that you feel is in a maybe not that drastic a situation relative to his team, but comes close?
I don't think there's anybody that comes close to the Trout. That's a tragedy. You've got Babe Ruth. That is Babe Ruth. That is Babe Ruth, and you've stuck him in a team like this. That is the saddest thing to see, because this guy is Babe Ruth. That's what you're watching, and you are. He is going to be up there with his career, if he continues, up there with Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds in terms of his career, and he's stuck on a team with a front office that has no clue as to what to do with that phenomenal player. There's no other player that I can compare it to. There isn't.
Uh-huh. And I guess one other question, I don't know if this one really makes much sense, but I always have followed the Detroit Tigers since I was a boy. And you spoke earlier how you don't think they're too much of their team right now. But if you were the Tigers general manager, what would you be thinking relative to Miguel Cabrera and I know his value there wasn't very good, but would you be thinking about replacing him with a minor league? I know there's a contract involved, but do you have any idea?
Well, obviously, he is long past his productive. So you have a choice. Do you want popularity and losing record, or do you want to actually try to win? So I think I answered your question. It's the same thing with Los Angeles, even worse with Albert Pujols, who has been possibly the worst player in the major leagues, not named Chris Davis, for the last 3 years, because he plays every day and he kills that team's offense at a position where you absolutely have to have big offense. So, and they bat him in the middle of the lineup for one unknown reason. So you have Tigers. What we did in Montreal, and people just didn't understand it, and what we did in the first years when I was in the Red Sox, because in both cases we went from last to contender overnight each time. And we did not do that other than through lots of trades that changed the team and signings of players that other teams didn't understand. We filled the bench with quality players that would plucked of all the teams' benches that can play. it was easier to do then than now, of course. It's more advanced in player evaluation. Then it was like taking candy from babies, but that's that you can do that at Detroit. You can pick up players. You'll see players who are free agents that at least you have a player, as I said, even if you have only one plus player, if you had the other players, 0 players around them, you have a winning season coming up. Okay, so and John Candelario had a good season last year. In fact, you had a couple of players. So if you could fill it around for players that are out there, that even from the minor leagues, I can't tell you how many guys I've watched guys playing regularly in the major league, shouldn't be in the major league, and they're playing every day. And I watch guys in the minor leagues who clearly can outplay them, and you're like, what is who is this guy the manager's best friend? What is this? And it's sad to see. You see guys. I said there was a guy, Kansas City, one of their bonus babies, who was a #1 overall pick. They rushed him as a third baseman to the major leagues before he was ready. So he was played regularly for like 3-4 years at the major league and was overmatched. And they sent him back. He can't play at the major league level, which is bullshit. You brought him up before he was ready. Later, a few years later, when he was ready, and he was assassinating the minor leagues, and he came up and he had a few cup of coffees at the major league level, and he assassinated the major league pitching when he was up, and they sent him right back. I was saying to myself, I wish I was advising a GM again. I grabbed him so fast. He obviously now has developed into what you expected him to be, but he has this big X next to him. He can hit at the major league level. It is just, I've seen too many players like that. It is a sad situation. And so I'm not able, when you're not able to evaluate players. I mean, I remember I couldn't believe that the Dodgers didn't understand what they had in Pedro Martinez as a youngster. Okay, couldn't understand it. And I'm advising Dan Duquette. And we're at the Sheraton Gold Glove Awards dinner. And Dan goes down to negotiate with the Dodger manager and he comes back and says, we got him. And the Dodger manager comes back up and he's schmoozing the news media. And I'm sitting myself, oh my God, he just doesn't know what he just did. He don't know what he just did. And then we followed up the next year when we got John Wetland from him again. If you don't know how to evaluate players, both major league, minor league, I mean, when Jim Thome and Manny Ramirez were down at AA, I called up Dan immediately to say, you got to call up Cleveland. Call it. There's 2 Hall of Famers down at AA. If we can figure out what you can trade for them. Teams. I watch teams. When St. Louis traded Randy Arozarena to Tampa Bay, I was like flabbergasted. As little time as he had, I had Randy on my fantasy baseball team, both in 2019, 2020. I mean, I was watching that guy. I was like, what? And I watched them through St. Louis trade him to Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay knows what they're doing. Clearly, they know. And St. Louis, I was like, are you kidding me? What are you thinking? Okay. It was understandable when they traded Luke Floyd away because they had a first baseman. Okay, and but you could tell he was going to be a big hitter, and they didn't get much for him. But at least they had an excuse. But Randy Arozarena, I was like, what are they doing? Well, what is their front office thinking? If I were advising a GM, I would have beaten Tampa Bay. That's it. You ain't getting Randy Arozarena. If they want to trade him, we got a better offer coming. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I have another, uh, with the weaknesses of WAR and OPS, are there any other things that have come up that are better to use as a rating? Or is your position, use these
have-
3-year averages that you've come up with?
Well, this, my formula, I published the formula in my books. Okay, there are some slight adjustments to it since. But fundamentally, the books that I put out in 1991, 92, 93, 94, all have a chapter detailing the formula. It's a long chapter. It's fairly detailed, but it's the same formula essentially. So it's out there. And so I think I may have it somewhere on my computer, that chapter somewhere. I'd have to look for it, because it's from long time ago, to see if I could email it. But that formula I put out, and I have not found any. It's the same thing. I actually did not intend to do this. I did not intend to write the books. I never intended to advise the teams. When Bill James stopped putting out the baseball abstract, I couldn't start a season without understanding what's happening. So I wrote a short chapter that I gave out because I was a union officer in a very big union. I had a lot of friends, and I gave them a copy of what I wrote to them, my friends. And for the next months, I was beaten over the head by everybody to write the book. And then I gave them an answer, which I thought would get rid of them. I was not going to write a book. I said, okay, if nobody else has done what I'm done, I'll write a book. I was convinced that obviously my idea was too obvious. Okay, it was too obvious. I spent, when all the baseball books, there's a big Barnes & Noble in New York, I spent all day going back and forth through every book, through the baseball encyclopedia, which had a whole section on formulas and everything. I would come to a point, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe that is it. No, it's not. And I actually realized I made a promise. Now I got to write a book. Oh my God. I got to write a book. Oh my God. So I wrote the book, not figuring it would be anything more than writing a book. That would be it. I got rid of them. I did the book. Okay. But just so happens that I heard that there's a SABR conference in Cleveland. My wife's from Cleveland. We have friends in Cleveland. We can make a trip. We'll have a table with my book on it at SABR, and that'll be it. Because these are the great minds of baseball. They will. My little book is nothing. So I have the table there. There's other tables with their books next to me. And I'm in conversation, and I'm seeing all the talks and everything. And on the second day, I walk over to my wife, who is sitting at the table. I plop both hands down hard on the table, and I look at her in face and said, Veni, Vidi, Vici. These people have to learn from me. Okay. I was so shocked. I said to myself, this is $1 billion business, and they have no clue. I'm now forced to continue this, to write. And then I went and I met with Dan Duquette in Philadelphia when Montreal was in Philadelphia.
Wait a minute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
now,
Okay, okay. So I met with him in Philadelphia, and he hired me so that when he becomes GM in October, this was in September, Labor Day. It was Labor Day in Philadelphia. He would hire me as his consultant on player evaluation. So that's how that began. It all came out about because I gave a promise that I didn't intend to keep. It just was one of those funny things, and it's grown since then because what we have. I just have been tearing my hair. I watch teams make trades, and I'm going like, what were they thinking? Every year I see trades or signings that make no freaking sense. And I'm like, what is that front office thinking? And then obviously I told you about the Mets thing. And I'm desperately trying to get a hold of the Mets front office thing. Don't do it. And so anyhow, it's, and I listen, I turn on WFAN in New York, and it's just laughable when they talk about, oh, they got to sign Francisco Lindor to this $300 million contract. And I look at my ratings, and he's a nice player. He ain't $300 million. This is ridiculous. The key to that trade was Carlos Carrasco. That's what they needed. They had Andres Jimenez, a young player who came up and did very well for them last year, several years younger at the same position, whose minor league career was not that different from Francisco Lindor. So they traded him and other prospects to get Carlos Carrasco in effect, not Lindor. That's the way I look at it. And that was so that's the only reason I gave a thumbs up to the trade. Carlos Carrasco, because that's the desperate need at the position to make them a contender as a playoffs.
By the way, Jimenez has been playing shortstop in spring training, and he's obviously going to be the starter at shortstop for the Indians. Rosario, they put in the outfield. Yesterday, he made 3 errors in 5 innings.
Well,
Center field.
He was never a premier shortstop to begin with. Rosario, they gave up on him because his bat is too weak. So maybe he will improve because he was a big prospect. But thus far in the major leagues, he's been a below average. So an outfield is a big offensive position. So I don't see how he's going to improve your team moving into the outfield because you need a bat out there as well as a glove. And if he's not going to be a good glove as well, that's a zero. No, the kid that they got is Jimenez. That's the kid that has to develop for them to feel great about the trade because they had to give up Carrasco anyways. They were like the Dodgers with Ryu. They have too many starters. They have tremendous pitching, and they have more coming. So Carrasco was out of the needed to be traded to get other stuff anyways. So
Right.
so
Budget.
yeah, and I don't. Their situation is very different. The budget is different, but I don't think they really lost that much on this trade. They may have actually gained a lot because if Jimenez turns out, then it's all plus for the Cleveland Indians.
Well, they got 2 other players. One's a pitcher, and the other one, but they're only in their first or second year in the minors. So you don't know
Yeah,
how
but-
they're going to.
Yeah, but obviously they feel they can develop into something. And they're building up their minor league system. But the key is Jimenez. Key for Jimenez. Rosario is just a player that, who knows, maybe he could develop. We don't know, but that's not who they're kidding. The key players are Jimenez and the 2 minor leaguer, 2 youngsters, not Rosario.
Were you advising Montreal in 2002 when they traded?
No. My career was from 91, 30 years ago, to 97. Okay, that was when the Boston and national media got a hold of me, and when we failed to re-sign Roger Clemens, they went after Dan Duquette, tried to get him fired, and they used me as the target. So all the national media and all the Boston media was attacking me like unbelievable. So I was like front page news. I turned down the sporting news. They wanted to do a national article on me and so on. I turned it down because I was trying to keep my head down at the time, but that didn't avail myself. Yeah, but the Boston ownership did not like the fact that who's this person that getting all this attention that he's your advisor, but we're paying him some money, but this is no good. So they wanted to cut ties. So Baltimore wanted to hire me. Oh, you're Baltimore. Baltimore wanted to hire me. The GM asked to hire me, but was turned down by the ownership. And shortly thereafter, the GM was fired, and he went over to Atlanta as the assistant GM. Helped build that organization. So my career is from 91 to 96.
The reason I mentioned 2002 is that's probably one of the greatest trades the Indians made of all time, trying to make up for the Calavito deal. They got traded Bartolo Colon to Montreal, and they got Brandon Phillips, Grady Sizemore, and Cliff Lee.
Okay. Well, there was a trade. There are plenty of trades that are one-sided. They continue to be. I think we could deal with that pretty much year by year. Any other more questions on the two screens I showed you? I have other screens if you want to see them. So those two screens are, any questions on those?
Mike, to wrap up, because I need to head out in the next couple
Okay,
for appointment.
okay,
So
okay,
this,
just,
yeah, this
okay,
was
that's
great.
it.
This is recorded, guys, for anybody who came late or is not here. So it'll be up on the SABR
And
page in a
right.
few days.
can you, so you'll send me the link to it as well?
Yeah, it'll probably take 2 or 3 days, but I'll send it to you.
Right, then I can share it on Facebook to other people and so on.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, very good.
So much appreciated, guys. Our next meeting will be the last Sunday of the month at 7 p.m. just to babble some baseball talk. And then the first meeting in April, which I believe is the 7th, Marty Payne, who's a chapter member, is going to talk about Negro League baseball on the Eastern Shore. And then down the line, as we line up more speakers and presenters, obviously we'll keep you in the loop.
Just before you go, just let you know, this is one of the other screens. This is the career value from Beirut down of the top of all the top players. I would have gone to that. Just letting you know.
Nice. Much appreciated, Mike, man from my home area.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks
Okay,
for joining us in the middle of the day. You know how to reach me if you need anything, and we'll see you the last Sunday of March.
okay, very good.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Yes,
Good
thank you.
night.
Can we get his
Nice.
email address?